Hello everyone and welcome to Nordic Angler's Fly Tying. Today we're gonna tie the Glimmertyven, or the shimmer thief, or whatever you wanna call it. It's always a little difficult to translate these Danish fly names into English. But this is a really effective sea trout pattern for these winter months where something really pungent in colors really gonna provoke the fish. This is a pattern by Troels Holstein, like the HOOKS is, and this is actually a development from this fly. It's a really nice fly that has a lot of fluorescent qualities when exposed to UV light, and it's a really effective pattern that's really proven itself over the last month or so on the coast here in Jerusalem. So here we go, we're gonna tie the Glimmertyven. Det der. So here we go. Let's tie the Glimmertyven, or the shimmer thief, or whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna start out here with a light stinger in size 4. Just gonna take a white thread. This is a GSP thread, and just gonna wind some on the base of the hook here, making sure to stop before the hook bend is there. Cutting off the excess. And the first thing we're gonna make on this fly is a little ball of dubbing in the back here. This is an STF fiber in salmon. And the reason we do this is because we want all the materials to kind of stand up in the end of the fly. Like, we have this taper on the fly, and the bulk down here is vastly caused by this ball of dubbing we're gonna put in here at first. So I'm just gonna spin some dubbing on my thread here. You don't need to use a dubbing loop or anything. The most important thing when doing this is not putting the material too far out front in the hook. I want to keep it down here, so the more you can build it up on its own like this, like a ball, the better. Like so. So now I really have a contact point where all my material is gonna stand up this way instead of just being flat on the hook. And the next thing I'm gonna put in is some of this, well, they say it's orange, but I'd say it's shell pink flash here. I'm just gonna use this to create like the underlinement of the form, I guess it's called in Danish, on the shrimp, like right above the eyes, where the plating is like in small points in between the eyes. So I'm just gonna put in a bundle here. I'm just gonna take my scissor and go through it. Normally I would say less is more when we were using flash, but this fly is in on its own, like fluorescent from the moon, so this is gonna kick. Yeah. So we got a little bundle of flash up here, we got a little thorn here. And just to make sure we got enough flash, I'm just gonna put in a little more. And this is a flashaboo, the same color that's using on the HOOKS, what we posted a couple of weeks back. Just gonna take 2 of each, 2 pearl and 2 orange, and just gonna place them right in the middle here on top of the other flash. And I'm gonna cut this to length later. There we go. Tying down the excess. There we go. I'm just gonna put a micro patch of dubbing here because these are all plastic materials, so it's a little easier to fasten the eyes if I have a little bit of contact here. Not a lot, just a little bit here. There. And I'm gonna use some easy shrimp eyes in the size small, in black. Starting by just adjusting them a little bit here. Tying them in just where the, I guess you can say the eye stems meet for this little back shield. Like this. And just tie the rest down here. This is just gonna be filler for my fly anyway. There we go. Making sure to get it all the way back. Just adjusting the eyes a little bit there. Like so. And the next thing we're gonna put in is the rubber legs. These are just round rubber legs in pink. You can use any color you want. Variants, variants, variants. Just gonna put in a piece here at the top. Tying it back and laying it double. Like that. If they're a little bit off, just adjust them before we move on. There we go. So now I'm gonna put in all the material for the body, and the first thing I'm gonna put in is my my rib, and I'm just gonna use a piece of nylon here. This is 0.20 or 0.08 inches. And the trick really when tying these shrimp flies and using this material to hold down the rib, I just use a simple half hitch, like so. Just tie it down. So I have like 4 millimeters or something like that in front of the knot. I'm just gonna tie it in before the knot here. Couple of turns, pulling in the knot and securing on the other side of the knot. So I don't have to go back and forth with the nylon, creating a very, very smooth, very slippery surface for the rest of my materials. This is a really efficient way to just make sure that this never goes anywhere, and I can manipulate this into the affinity without it ever breaking off. Yes. And before I just close this down, I'm just gonna take my hackle. I'm just gonna, it doesn't really matter what kind of hackle you use for this fly because it's gonna be guarded in between this cactus silhouette anyway. So taking something like this, just a regular hen, sorry, this is a rooster feather. This is a cock hackle in salmon pink. You can use American hackles, you can use 4B capes, you can use whatever you have lying around. And I'm just gonna tie it in with the right curve of the feather here, with the dull side in towards the fly. Making sure this is nice and secure. Putting that aside, I'm just going to take a piece of this cactus chenille. And this is a bit of a weird material to tie with, but it gives a really nice contrast to what you usually see in dubbed flies. And it has a really good density without really catching any water, so you can make a fly that's kind of voluminous without really catching out a lot of water in the cast. And I'm just gonna take some of the materials out here in the point, so I have this string in between where the materials is twining, and this is what I want to use to tie in my material. so it doesn't make like a big bump at the back of the fly here. Making sure this is nice and secure. Like so. And I'm just gonna take my thread up the eye here, not all the way. I want to create like maybe a 1 millimeter gap or something, because I have to put on the back shield, and this takes up quite a lot of room. So I want a little bit of spacing up here, so I don't have all the material pushed up against the eye, because then it's gonna be really hard to make a good finish on your fly. But I'm just gonna take this cactus finial here and just start out by taking a wrap here all the way up against the materials. This is really important because you don't want the gap. Just do one more. And I'm just gonna start putting it up towards the hook eye. And as I get up towards the hook eye, I'm creating a bit more spacing every time, because I don't want the material to be evenly thick all the way through. I want a little less material up against the eye here, like so. This looks great. Again, finishing like a millimeter or two before the eye. Tying that in. Cutting all the way in here, like so. So now we're gonna have to taper this cactus finial. And I'm just gonna start, before I even cut it, I'm just gonna take all these fibers and brush them back. Because this is really what's gonna get in your way and gonna mess with you when you're gonna make the head. So either cut it away or see if you can catch it with your thread here. So you have a little bit of material in. There we go. So now I'm gonna take this cactus finial, I'm gonna put into a taper, because now it's just really bulky and really voluminous. So I'm just gonna take my scissor and put it on the hook eye, and just gonna cut like a, I don't know, 35-degree angle or something like that. This is really nice to have a what do you call rotary rise, like a Renzetti here, because you can just turn it and just keep cutting at the same angle, like so. There we go. And now I'm gonna take my hackle. And same with the cactus finial, I'm just gonna take one full loop up here against my materials, and I'm gonna start winding it out. Creating a little bit of spacing. I'm just gonna go back here, this is a little too much. There. And I guess I'm doing like 4 or 5 turns here. It doesn't, as long as the spacing is approximately even or getting relatively bigger every time, you're not gonna notice it. So like this. Tying it off up here. There we go. Making sure this is gonna stick here. So now we're gonna take on the shield, the back shield. And for this I'm gonna use the material called Sinuous Laser Hair in pink. And I'm just gonna take a strand, it's just like a big untwisted rope here. I'm just gonna take a strand of this. And you really don't want to overdo this, because if I make a back shield here that's too dense or too thick, it's just going to be really hard to keep my dimension on the fly, because this is just going to be a hell of a lot of material just going to slap on top. But before I do this, I'm just going to take my dubbing brush here. I'm just going to take as many of the fibers up here as I can. This is obviously where it's gonna lie, the shield, so I don't want any hackle fibers if I can get around it, being caught in it. Just gonna get a little bit of survival, just gonna force these fibers down like this. Yes. And I'm gonna take this material here from my back, and I'm gonna tie it in the middle here. So actually what you want is like half the material you actually want on the top, because you're gonna double it here. If I were just to cut it off like straight and tie it down like this, it would be really hard not having all these materials not sticking forward into the eye. But if I take this material and just double it, so I'm just gonna catch it up here in the middle, like that. Then I can just take this and bend it back. And you see, now I don't have any materials going forward. This is a really neat trick to a lot of things you tie in at the hook eye, because it can be really hard to keep that clean of all the materials. The next good trick here is when you have to tie this in and putting on the ribbing on between all these materials, have a dubbing needle just for plucking the odd hackle or the odd cactus and nail fiber. And I'm just gonna take, this is a bit of a sticky thing to do, putting these on without really damaging the rest. So I take this needle and I'm just gonna scratch out my materials as I go. You can always pull out some afterwards, but the more you can get here, the easier it's gonna be. Like that. I'm just gonna go for like 4 or 5 turns up here as well. See if you can keep that cactus a little here. Like so. Making sure I really put some tension on this ribbing when I go through. You can see it's actually cutting down into my materials. That's what I want. And the last turn here. There we go. Tying it off here at the hook eye. Just laying it double, just, you know, never be too safe. I'm gonna whip finish this. If you want to, at this point, it's a good idea to just give a little drop of super glue or varnish, because this, if this ribbon goes, the fly goes. So then I'm gonna cut this into lengths and just making sure I don't have any of my hackle fibers or any of my flash fibers in here when I do this. I'm just gonna hold it back, cutting at a straight angle, holding it like a 45-degree angle and just cutting right above the eyes. Like that. Take your nail and just spread that out a little bit. What are you doing over there? There we go. Yes. And then to finish it off, I'm just gonna take some pink thread. You know, when in Rome. Like so. One more here. And there we go, the finished fly. Just take your dubbing brush here and just make sure all these materials are back. And there we go. The Glimmer 2, or the Shimmer Thief, or Yeah, I don't know about the name, but a really effective pattern for sea trout and other fish along the coastlines when the water's really cold. I would think this as a tube fly would be a really good steelhead fly as well in British Columbia and all that. It's a relatively simple fly, but yeah, judge for yourself. So here it is, the Glimmer 2, locked and loaded for the sea trouts. An intermediate fly that has a little bit of difficult steps in between to make it right, especially with this back shield up here. But a fly that I think everybody can tie if they just put their mind to it and sit down and take their time. Again, it's a really effective pattern for sea trouts, and Troels really did a number on the trouts with this fly. You can of course find the full material kit in the description below if you want to try that one for yourself. Otherwise, remember to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.